What is going on, everybody? Tyler Brandt back here with another video, another game in the books for the New England Patriots, and another loss for the New England Patriots. They fall to 2-3 on the season. The worst record they've had this far into October since 2002. And this one felt like maybe, well, the Chiefs game, which was their last game they played, that felt like a good loss, if there is a good loss. This one was one that got away, and this was a very bad loss for New England, all things considered. So without any further ado, let's break it down. Let's talk a little bit more about this week's matchup, the Patriots and the Denver Broncos. So I'll give the Patriots maybe a little bit of flack in this game. Not too much, though. I mean, it was bad. There's really no excuse for it, and it's a loss, and it counts in the NFL. I will say COVID has really hurt this New England team. It's really played with their schedule and played with this team. And again, losing Sony Michel and Shaq Mason the evening before a game, that's certainly not going to help. The offensive line was scrambling early on. Joe Thuney's been playing center. Onwenu was been all over the offensive line. Joe Thuney, again, played center. But we're talking about Isaiah Wynn. He moved inside and was playing guard at one point, and Justin Herron started the game at tackle. It was, again, they've been scrambling to put this offensive line together, and it wasn't good today. It just flat out wasn't good, but they did lose a ton of guys to injury. They had guys that weren't able to play because of COVID, and it showed. This wasn't the full Patriots squad, which is part of the reason they lost, but it's the NFL. There are no excuses. It's a next man up league, and a lot of guys didn't do their job even beyond the injuries today. Let's start with the bright spot this week, and that was the Patriots defense. Believe it or not, they actually had a pretty good game. They held the Denver Broncos out of the end zone all game, and there were a few goal-to-go situations which they actually came out pretty good. Drew Lock was very erratic today. He did make a few really nice throws, especially early on, but overall his line was 10 of 24 for 189 yards. No touchdowns, the two interceptions in the fourth quarter where New England made that late run, and he finished with a 34.9 passer rating. So again, he wasn't very good. A few nice throws early when he was in the red zone, when he really needed to make some big throws. He really couldn't find anybody, but he did do enough to win. He targeted Jason McCourty a lot, and he had some big completions over Jason McCourty. I believe there was a 3rd and 20 and change or something like that, and there was a 35-yard completion to Tim Patrick over Jason McCourty, and he seemed to be really picking on John Jones a lot. He threw at him a ton, I think around 10 times, and John Jones did very good. He had a very, very good game, and he was very busy, and he held his own. So there was a lot of good from the Patriots defense, considering they were on the field for 32 minutes, and they really had their backs against the wall for a lot of it. But Denver just did enough. They kicked enough field goals to win this game, and the defense did good. They weren't great. It was bend, don't break. And they did. They bent a lot, but they didn't get much help from the offense. Again, Tim Patrick was kind of, I guess, the focal point, if you want to call it, for the Denver offense. He had 4 catches for 101 yards, a few big third down conversions for them. Gilmore was mostly on Jerry Jeudy, and he took Jerry Jeudy out of the game. 2 receptions for 32 yards. He was really a non-factor. Gilmore had the pass interference, another really tacky call in the end zone that would set up the Denver Broncos with 1st and goal at the 1, and they weren't able to convert. So again, the Patriots defense did, a very good job, all things considered. Now, the run game, early on, Philip Lindsay was the guy. He was the focal point there for the running game for the Broncos. Early on, there wasn't much going on the ground, but as the game wore on and as fatigue set in and as the defense continued to have to go back out there, Philip Lindsay found some rushing lanes and was able to get himself over 100 yards. I believe he had 101 yards. And it was getting frustrating towards the end of the game. But all things considered, again, moral of the story, the Patriots defense did their job. We saw a lot of Juwan Bentley. He had 11 tackles. Very excited to see him as a part of the offense. He looked very, very good. And there was a lot of good, all things considered, from this defense, while the offense just, again, gave them absolutely no help whatsoever. Now, the defense, again, was great. There's not much else to talk about with the defense. Let's get to the ugliest part of the game, and it was the offense. Was flat out bad. There's no other way around it. The offense was flat out bad, and I'm torn with how angry and disappointed I am, because this was a game that got away from them that they should have won. And COVID's really messed with this team. Cam Newton hasn't played a game in pretty much 3 weeks at this point, and he was starting to put some really good stuff out there, but then you're stopped in your tracks, and you have to quarantine and get through this sickness. And I get that. But then on the other side, you know, we watched Tennessee. They couldn't practice for 3 weeks. I think they had 2 or 3 practices in like 19 days. They came out and they put an absolute mollywhopping on the Buffalo Bills. So it's like, again, kind of an excuse, but it's really not an excuse to me. It was a bad performance for the offense, and there's nowhere to hide behind it, at least for me. So they're responsible for this game, and a large part of why this offense was bad. There were injuries, you know, guys were banged up, and that's the NFL season, but Cam Newton was flat out bad today. There's nowhere to hide. There's no other way to say it. He's yet to beat Denver in his career, I believe, and the last time that, you know, we saw him on a big stage against Denver was Super Bowl 50, and it kind of looked a lot like Super Bowl 50 today, you know, without all the glitz and glam in Foxborough, because he was flat out bad. Cam Newton's line for today, he was 17 of 25. So again, the completion percentage still pretty good there. 157 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had 76 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and he had a 51.6 passer rating. I don't know where the 157 yards came from because there wasn't much there. I don't know. It was very frustrating to watch. The offensive line, you know, started to deteriorate as guys were getting hurt. Jermaine Eluemunor, he was out of the game early, and the offensive line was feeling it. You could see it. But from what I saw from Cam Newton, he missed a lot of throws. He was inaccurate. He was very, you know, trying to get things down the field, which is what we talked about in the pregame, but while he was trying to work down the field, he was just standing in the pocket, holding on to the ball forever. And props to the offensive line a lot of the time, because they did give him, on a lot of plays, some time to really read through and work through his progressions and do something. You know, sure, sometimes they got blown off the ball. The first Cam Newton interception was Michael Onwenu getting blown off the ball, and Cam Newton throwing a ball of that. I know he was trying to make a play he shouldn't have thrown, and it was a great play by the defensive tackle for Denver, taking that ball. That was a ball he shouldn't have thrown. The defensive line seemed to time him up perfectly. He had 3 or 4 balls that were batted up into the air. It was just a really, really bad game. It was very frustrating to watch, and the offensive line, you know, while they did good at times, when Cam Newton did have time to throw, he wouldn't move. And a lot of what his game is predicated on is extending the play, rolling out and making moves and moving in the pocket, moving your feet. And it was just so many times that he was just standing there staring like a statue, and it was so frustrating to watch, especially where this offense has been going, and it just seemed so dumbed down this week. Every time it looked like the Patriots had a drive going, something would happen. You know, the drive would either stall, or there would be a turnover or an interception or a fumble, something like that. So again, the first Cam Newton interception was on, it was like a 3rd and 2. The ball shouldn't have been thrown. It was going to be short, even if it was completed to one of the 100 checkdowns to James White that just got very vanilla, very quick. And while he did make some plays out of some of them, a lot of them, when they would check down to him, he was just swallowed up in the backfield. So this one, he was late, and he tried to make the play, and the ball gets batted up in the air. Onwenu gets blown off the ball. That's why the ball gets batted up in the air, and it's intercepted. Not totally his fault, but he's also responsible for it too in some ways. The second interception, same kind of thing. He was late rotating. It looked like it was going to be a check down. I think it was either Jules or White, and it was going to go to the left side of the field. And Justin Simmons timed up the throw, just got a fingertip on the ball, which slowed it down, and then all of a sudden the Broncos defender took the ball, and it was another interception. As a team, New England ran for 117 yards, another good, impressive performance for the running game. They are one of the elite running squads in the NFL, but a lot of the runs came in one play. It was like a 60-yard run from Cam Newton to get him down to 1st and goal. That was the biggest run of the day. Other than that, there was really no consistency to the run game. Denver did a great job. That was the strength-on-strength matchup, and Denver won. The interior of that defensive line wreaked havoc all game. And, it was just an awful, awful offensive performance. Jules was targeted 6 times. He had 2 catches. I would like to see Jules. I know he's been bad, and I know he's had a couple drops and stuff like that, but he's really, to me, the focal point, at least for the wide receivers of this offense. He's the crafty veteran who maybe he can't physically separate, but he's got the mind to separate a little bit, and you need to get him involved in the game a little bit more. He can't have 2 catches. That's not a good recipe. And it wasn't just him. I mean, they were all, every receiver was bad. They weren't separating. They weren't separating down the field. Cam was scanning the field, and there was nobody there. The frustration was when he would hold the ball for a long time and then get sacked or drop down or whatever it was. But it just didn't work. There was no connection with any of the receivers in Cam Newton. It was either go down the field and get a pass broken up or check down to James White. It felt like James White had half of the receptions, at least in this game, from Cam. So we get to the second half of the game. We think there's going to be adjustments. It's the same story. It's, field goal, field goal, field goal for the Broncos. Patriots just trying to do anything. The biggest play in the second half was the Ryan Izzo strike over the middle, and Ryan Izzo fumbles the ball as soon as he's contacted by the defender, and that was kind of the moral of the entire game. Drew Lock throws the 2 picks late. All of a sudden, the Patriots come whirling back, and it was cool, and it would have been a cool comeback, but now looking back at it, they were never going to come back. I mean, the first interception, they kicked the field goal to make it a one-possession game, which was great, but it wasn't enough, and it never was enough. All game, it wasn't enough. And then in the last interception, when the Patriots were driving to take the lead, it would have been cool. The gadget play from Edelman to Cam was awesome. That was very energetic. I was freaking out when they did that. And then it just went back to being very vanilla. That was the game. It was very bland. It was a bland game plan by Josh McDaniels that wasn't executed by Cam Newton. Whether there was rust, maybe, but that's not an excuse. And, of course, the Patriots lose 18-12. That's how you get to that final score. An ugly, ugly game. The Patriots fall to 2-3. They could have pulled back even with the Buffalo Bills, assuming they lose to Kansas City this week, but they missed the opportunity at that. And now you look at the Patriots' schedule. They're under 500 this late into October for the first time in 18 years. Now they play San Francisco. They play Buffalo twice. They play the Rams. They play the Chargers, both of those games on the West Coast. They play Baltimore. They play Arizona. This schedule is loaded. It's still loaded. They have a lot of very tough games. And now you got to beat these good teams. Now you have to beat these good teams to make a shot and to make your shot and get into the playoffs. Now it gets very difficult because you lose to the teams that you shouldn't have lost to. Again, I get COVID makes this season very difficult, but everybody has and is dealing with the same thing. New England's maybe dealing with it worse than others, but a loss is a loss no matter what. And this is a bad loss for New England. And, props to Brandon McManus, I guess. I mean, he was 6 for 6 for field goals. He was the MVP of the game. He scored all the points for the Broncos. Frustrating game. Hopefully, the Patriots get back to a normal week of practice. I think probably that's a decent reason as to why the Patriots offense was an absolute mess, was because they practiced like 3 times in 2 weeks. So hopefully things get back to normal. It's very dicey with, players getting put on the COVID list, whether they have it or not. Hopefully this calms down because it's really starting to derail the Patriots season. Roger Goodell's an idiot for making them play the Chiefs game on Monday. We all know that. But that's it. Ugly game, ugly loss for the Patriots. And we are on to San Francisco. It's San Francisco 49ers week. And that's all you can say about it. But that is going to do it for this one. Once again, I am Tyler Brandt. If you don't already, follow me on Twitter at the Tyler Brandt, on Instagram at Talking Pats. What did you think of this game? Leave it down in the comments down below. Maybe I'm being a little bit hard on Cam Newton, but, you live and you die with the good and the bad Cam Newton. We've seen a lot of good. This was the bad Cam Newton, and we got a lot of it today. But let me know. Let me know what you think of the whole game. What do you think of the defense, the offense? Leave it in the comments down below. I'd love to chop it up with you there or on social media. Once again, I am Tyler Brandt. Stay good. Be healthy. Let's go, Pats. We're on to San Francisco. I'll catch you on the next video.